As you might all imagine, I'm still a little bit dazed by, what transpired today. But I want to start with something completely unrelated to this prize, and that is that this is a very special day for me, seeing the return of 20 live hostages of my countrymen this morning, which warms my heart far more than any other personal achievement that I can ever get. So it was this morning when I got up early and I dashed off to my laptop to check whether these hostages had been returned. And then I noticed in my email there were all these messages of congratulations, and I go, what are they congratulating me for? And I thought it was maybe people mistaken my birthday or something, but no, I mean there was a missed call with a country code of 42, which is Sweden, and then all of a sudden something started to dawn on me. Still trying to digest this. It'll probably take a couple of weeks. So I want to cite two things that I learned from those Nobel Prize winners and explore its meaning just for a second. Bob Fogel said to me once, Joel, economics must deal with economic history. He says, for economics to work without economic history is like an evolutionary biologist without paleontology. And if you don't have paleontology, you just miss 99.5% of all the species that ever walked this earth. And so I teach economic history in some sense, keeping that in mind, that we can observe in the past economic systems, economic societies, economic interactions that we don't have anymore. Some of them just as well, formal slave markets, feudalism, a whole bunch of other sort of things that have disappeared from this earth, and we're not sorry about to leave. But if we don't study those, we're really missing a great deal of what economics can teach us. And so that's what I spend my life doing. As technology gives us more power over nature and more ways, to achieve our goals and to harness the forces of nature to our goals, if the institutions are bad, and by institutions, North meant, and I think most of us mean, essentially the rules of the game in economics and in politics. And if institutions get worse while technology gets better, the outcome can be quite devastating to the people. And so that's sort of, once you think about it, it's kind of obvious, right? So, you make a hammer, you build a technological tool. It can be used to build a home, and it can be used to bash, Abel and Cain's heads in. That's, I think, something that's true across the board for technological change throughout the ages. Gunpowder can be used to fight wars, and it can be used to build tunnels. And I think the same is true for the things that are on the horizon today, including artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and so on and so forth. So I'm an optimist, and I've always been an optimist, as my colleague Bob Gordon, who's been here since I've been, and we've had many interesting conversations about this. So, but I think we should always keep in mind that technology can be abused, but that by and large it is still true that if you had to choose a year in human history in which you wanted to be born, I would choose 1925, because I still think that our capability of creating techniques that make our lives better, more comfortable, longer, reduce disease, reduce mortality, keeps us cool in the summer and warm in the winter, and make sure that we eat well, that those techniques will continue to improve. And insofar that things go wrong, and unfortunately there are still famines in this world and there's still people not getting an education, it is not the fault of technology. It is the fault of our institutions that haven't been getting better. The human race faces two of the greatest challenges that it has ever faced. And these things have no real precedent. So history is not a very good guide here. But it's something that we have to face and we have to think about with the tools that history provides us, even if history itself doesn't give you an answer. And those are climate change and the demographic change. And they're very different in their nature and they're very different in the solutions. But given that the only way in which we can cope with these crises is inventing ourselves out of it, I strongly urge the world to keep putting efforts and money and resources and incentives to the people who are trying to invent us out of these two crises. And I think if we achieve that, I think technology will have fulfilled its role. Now, this is not an uncontroversial point, but I think there seems to be almost no other way of dealing with it. And so I wanted to say, seeing everybody here and the many emails that I've gotten, I have, as we call it in economics, have enough warm glow to contribute marginally to climate change.
You have often spoken positively about technological innovation. How are you feeling about AI, which, as you know, has sparked concerns about everything from the elimination of jobs to darker scenarios like whether it could develop deadly viruses?
Well, my day wouldn't be complete if I didn't have a question about AI. I think wherever I go, people ask me questions about AI. It's a tool. The notion that somehow AI is this monstrosity that lurks, somewhere beneath us and will eventually come and, drive the human race into extinction and take over the planet. I mean, these people have read too much dystopian science fiction. Nothing of the sort is ever going to happen. In fact, the whole idea that machines are more intelligent than we are seems to assume that intelligence is a single metric in which we sort of measure a machine's IQ and compare it to our... But that's complete nonsense. I mean, of course, human intelligence is multidimensional, and it's always been the case that we use machines to do things that we can't do ourselves because our senses and the size of our brain aren't good enough, okay? So we can't see bacteria either. So we build a microscope and we see bacteria. We can't see the planets of Jupiter, the moons of Jupiter. So we build a telescope and we see them. We can't do zillions of calculations in a second, so we have high-powered computers. That doesn't make the computer more intelligent. It just means that in a particular dimension, they can do things that we can't. AI is an information aggregator. Okay? It knows what we fed it, and it has access. At very high speed, it can process it in ways that we tell it to do. But the notion that they have human intelligence that includes initiative and intuition and ambition and things like that seems to be really fanciful. And that's not, I think, what's on the near horizon. I mean, who knows what's going to happen 50 years from now. But at the moment, I see AI primarily as a magnificent research assistant.